It's working. Okay, good. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, let's see. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh. Loud and clear. Okay, good. Hey, everyone. Hello. Okay. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to. Um, I have a list of questions that people ask me. And I'm going to. I'm gonna go through them from the comments on, I guess, the video from like a month ago or something like that. So I'm gonna go through those, and then I will also answer questions from the live stream. I will try to have everything open on both sides. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So sorry for obviously technical difficulties. I was trying to start the stream and it would not let me, and it was very annoying. Okay. Okay. So let us go to the questions. Okay. So first question from Dark Elmo. What are some stories that changed your life? I'm not talking about just about fictional stories, but stories that change your way of looking at writing, character development, themes, people, culture, relationships, etc. Okay, so that's a good question. In terms of fictional stories that changed my life, I think the two fictional stories that completely changed everything for me were One Piece. One Piece is my favorite story of all time, I think. And One Piece was what made me decide to take writing professionally, and really see if I could do this, for real. Devote a lot of time to it, and I think in terms of IRL stories, the story that's impacted me the most is the story of Smash Brothers Melee, the old version of Super Smash Brothers Melee. The story of that community really is one of the best. Like, it's one of these like stranger than fiction type stories. The personalities are like larger than life, and it really inspired me in terms of my own writing. It's something that I decided to write like a really long form project on, based on my inspiration from that. I think probably uh, in traveling, then I've encountered a lot of stories. Probably the most impactful story was learning about learning a lot about apartheid South Africa, and I guess the greater context of the Cold War. That changed a lot in terms of just how I kind of view the world. Um, there was a tour that I went on in Namibia, where I was the guy put me in front of this building, and he said, "Who do you think made that building?" And it was a very strange building, and I didn't know who. It did not look like it belonged in the middle of Africa, so I had no idea who built it. And he said North Korea built this building, and he went on to tell me about this whole alliance between Namibia and North Korea, and I talked about this in my gray characters video, about like a world's colliding moment, and that was completely a world's colliding moment for me, of just realizing that like North Korea, who I associated as this kind of big enemy in the world, had to team up with the anti-apartheid groups in South Africa and Namibia, back then part of South Africa. And that completely, it was just it made me just not understand, made me realize how much I didn't understand about just how the world works, and like really understand kind of unanswerable questions. within events in the world. Okay. I see someone saying I'm from South Africa too. Hello. I visited South Africa where we studied apartheid as a study abroad Christian school. Cool. Okay. Another question: what Myers-Briggs personality type are you? I don't know that much about Myers-Briggs. I am a INTP though. I do know that. What were you doing before YouTube, and how did you get to here? I was writing a novel and some other things. And I was, in terms of my job, I'm a, so people, it's funny, people have asked if I'm a teacher, if I'm an English teacher. I'm a private tutor, and I mostly tutor math, which I think people find funny. Yeah, that was what I was doing. What are your thoughts on the sequel trilogy? I assume Star Wars. Sequel trilogy is I'm kind of the opinion that there's only like 3 Star Wars movies. Sequels I was very hopeful for, and over the course of watching the first sequel, then my world kind of collapsed, and I lost all hope. So The Force Awakens I really don't like. The other movies were okay. Once I was kind of over, I guess, the expectation, then I kind of just accepted where things were at. Okay, Elizabeth Davies asks, you talked a little bit about how your dad is a psychologist in past videos. Oh, I got a super chat. Kiaria, love your videos. So great to have detailed analysis and you articulate thoughts I never can. Side note, your voice is so chill. I love it. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, Elizabeth Davies, question: you talked a little bit about how your dad is a psychologist in past videos. How would you say this insight has affected the way you interpret and write stories? Okay, so my dad is a psychiatrist, and he is a Marisa asks, are you a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist? No, I'm not. Yeah, so my dad was a psychiatrist in private practice for a while, and then he was a psychiatrist at a maximum security prison. And his work was mostly dealing with severely mentally ill patients and managing their medications and diagnosing them in terms of figuring out how to medicate them and what they need in terms of, I guess, the pharmaceutical side of it. So that's we didn't talk in terms of therapy a lot. It was very I guess it was very impactful to hear. He obviously has a lot of crazy stories about about his job, and to hear about populations like that and understand populations like that a lot better. That was very impactful. But yeah, so whenever there's something like that in fiction, then I like to talk to him about it. And obviously in Arcane, there's a lot of that. So we had a lot of conversations about that. But in terms of like understanding like character motivations and stuff like that, it's a little bit separate from what he does. Question 2 from Elizabeth Davies. Question 2, Electric Boogaloo. Is there a story out there that you know is utter garbage but can't help being incredibly entertained by? For example, Twilight or The Bachelorette. Star Wars Episode 1, I would have to say. I think Star Wars Episode 1 is not great, but it will always have a special place in my heart. As a kid, I loved it, and then I realized, around the time that Episode 2 came out, that it was not as good as I thought it was. But I do love it. And then this is a little bit, I don't know if this is the exact category that Elizabeth is talking about, but Big Trouble in Little China was a movie that I grew up with, and is one of these like movies that's supposed to be, it's like written kind of to be a bad kind of B movie. Like it's not written to be like a serious good movie. I think it's actually legitimately an amazing movie. Like I think that it's like out of this world amazing. I've seen chat. Someone asked, "Will I be doing a long form Star Wars video?" I do want to. So there are a lot of questions. I'm not going to go through every single question about this. I got a lot of questions about the future of the channel, and I do plan to transition to doing long form content on other things at some point, like mixing with Arcane stuff. The main things I'd probably be doing content on would be Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, One Piece, depending. Oh, I guess I should ask you guys this. So does anyone know? I know there's a whole thing with Totally Not Mark and Toei and all that kind of stuff. Is that blown? Like, is that fine now? Like, if I make a video like with One Piece footage, then am I gonna get like destroyed, or like what's gonna happen with that? Because I would love to make content about that, but I also, I'm afraid of the corporations. Let's see if anyone has answers. Anime is trash, in my opinion. I disagree. Okay, there's a delay, so I'm going to keep answering, then I'll see. Don't risk that. As far as I know, they still demonetize. Just use stock photos would be funny. Not a bad idea. Most Japanese corporations are quite harsh on copyright. Okay. Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people are saying that it's not a great idea. Okay. His One Piece videos got region blocked in Japan. That was a solution. Okay. Yeah, hopefully that's what would happen. Okay, I guess I'll just wait and see. Most One Piece YouTubers do fine. Okay, I guess I'll just do more research on it. See what happens. Okay. Okay. So okay, so I got a lot of other. Okay, so someone's asking, why do you call yourself Schnee? Snow in German. My last name, Schnee is my last name, so that's why I call myself Schnee. What college did your dad go to for psychology? Good question, but I'm not going to answer that. Sorry. Okay. I see a lot of people asking for my season 2 predictions. I'm going to make a whole video on that, so I'm not going to answer that now. Okay, so the big question. Okay, yeah, Kiaria is asking again. The big question: Hextech or Chemtech? Keep one and obliterate one, and why? I think Hextech is a lot more interesting. I think. I feel like we haven't really seen the what Chemtech can do. At this point, I guess turning into a monster seems fine. We saw a little bit of like the guys in the chem suits and stuff like that. Hextech seems like a whole new thing, and that interests me more. Okay, Lunar Bean asks another question that I see a lot of people asking. How long do you think you will make Arcane videos? So people were asking, do I feel like I'm running out of things to talk about with Arcane? I don't think so at this point. Since I started making Arcane content, then I had a list of like things I could possibly talk about, and I was like, okay, I have like 2 more months of content. And then like every time I would make that list, like I come back to the list like every month, and I'd be like, okay, I still have about 2 months of content. And like now, even I look at my list, and it's been, I don't know, I guess it's been like 6 months since I started doing this, and I'm like, okay, I think I have about two months left. So hopefully, it's perpetually I have 2 more months of stuff to talk about. But we'll see. Right now, I still have a lot of ideas. So, what character from Arcane do you most relate to, and why? That was another question that someone asked in one of my videos. So people asked me in terms of what character I relate to, and then someone else asked, what character do I see myself in the most? And it's 2 slightly different answers, I think. The character I relate to a lot is Jinx, is Powder. I made a video about watching Arcane's younger sibling and how I really related to, I guess, like Powder's arc as the younger sibling and my own experiences. Being that, that kid who kind of feels like they're a little bit behind and, is always looking up to their older sibling. I really relate to that. And that was a lot of my childhood experience. In terms of personality, I mean, obviously, Jinx and my trajectory is kind of diverted. But in terms of my personality, I think Victor is probably the most similar to me in personality. Kind of just like someone who likes to think about things and do diligent work and stuff like that. Could you make a video about the crow and firelight symbolism? I see someone asking. I've seen a lot of requests for that, and I've wanted to make a video on that. I actually recorded a video a while ago, and then I realized I was not so sure if it was a crow or a raven, and I put it off for a while. I finally, last week, I consulted a bird expert friend that I have, and he confirmed for me what the situation was there. So I'm probably gonna make a short on that soon. Okay. Sable Phoenix says it's a crow. Okay. So the long and short of it is that visually it looks more. So first of all, crows and ravens are very very related. They're I guess part of the same grouping. Crows and ravens, the calls are crow calls. So yeah, so that's true. So the calls are definitely crow calls in terms of the characteristics physically. Then they look a little bit more like ravens. So I think that's about where it's at. My guess, and this is what I proposed to my bird friend, and he said that that's a possibility. It was animated in France, obviously with Fortiche, and I think ravens are a lot more common in mainland Europe. That's what I had heard. And crows are more common in a lot of places in the US, I guess. So it's possible that the people who animated what they were used to. They animated a raven, and the people in the US, I don't know if the sound stuff was actually done in the US, but if the sound stuff was done in the US, then they just put the call that they were used to. So that's how we got a crow, raven making a crow call. Sable Phoenix says, it's a fantasy bird in a world that has growing green fireflies. Fair enough. That is true. Very true. Okay. Okay. One big question that I got a ton of people asking, and I've continuously got a ton of people asking about this, is my educational background and my analysis method. So I guess I will answer that. So people ask me, let's see, how I learned to analyze and break down stories. People ask if I have an English degree. People ask if how I understand all this stuff. Very flattering. Where do you get all your insight for your video essays? Do you have formal education literature? Do you write or something? Yeah, so I am a college dropout. I do not have a degree in anything. My background is in yeah, this is probably going to be a little bit out of left field for people. So my background is in something called Talmudic law. I'm Jewish, and I went to school for I went to an academy that specializes in an analytical method called the Brisker Derech, or the Brisker method, which if you want to look up, you can. If you look it up, it's not going to be much. So basically, Talmudic law is this very rigorous Jewish academic discipline, and I studied for 6 years in this academy that where like everyone around me was geniuses. I was like, if I'm like really honest about it, I was probably like a 3 or 4 out of 10 in terms of like the people there. Everyone there was super smart, and Jewish law has nothing to do with fiction, with analyzing fiction, obviously. But the method that I learned, it's all about inductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning is the opposite of like deductive. Deductive, you have a principle, and then you derive things from the principle. And inductive reasoning is you start with basically the results, and you have to figure out what the principle is. So that's what I was doing like all day for like 6 years. And you look at a set of data, usually something with a ton of contradictions in it, and you try to induce multiple perspectives, or like the rules that are at work there. And it's a really slow process a lot of times, at least the way we did it. And you can be on like a few sentences for like a month. And I think I think that also comes through in my analysis, that like I'm picking apart all these little things about Arcane, 6 months later, that like when I get interested in something, then I go very slow because that's what I'm used to. But yeah, it was an academic environment where like there's a lot of pressure to be like really substantive and clear. Like whenever you open your mouth to say anything, you kind of get like called out if you didn't say something that was like, you know, I guess like really well like really well formulated and stuff like that. I don't feel like I'm so proficient in it, but that really helped me like just get into the habit of analyzing things like on a really a really rigorous level, I think. Yeah. So so that's that. Yeah. So whenever I analyze anything, then I kind of like those methods and that kind of rigor kind of comes with me. So that's the story with that. Can you do a video on analyzing specifically Jinx, please? I think I'll learn a lot from it. I have one more big video to make about Jinx, I think. But a lot of what I have about Jinx, I think, is already up there. I mean, I think the You're Perfect thing, that video is a lot of what I had to say about Jinx. And I think I covered a lot of her in other videos. Do I speak any other languages? I understand Hebrew and Aramaic. Okay. Oh, and then in terms of my process, I'll just say, so the most important thing to me is questions, that just asking every question you can think of, and focusing on the questions, not on the answers. I really think if people want to get better at analyzing things, and I really think it comes down to focus on asking the best questions that you can, and the answers will just come on their own. If you ask better questions, then you'll get better answers. Find contradictions, find inconsistencies. Don't look for things to make sense. Look for things to not make sense, and then the more things you'll see, then like the overarching principles should come together. In terms of specifics, then I mentioned this in my R2D2 video. Mundane Rupert, that's an actual thing. That's like an actual like method that I use. That whenever you see anything, whenever you see anything that looks very specific, then just compare it to something that is like a very basic version of that thing. So if you see a character who, like with R2D2, then he's I said he is like this little guy who like kind of helps things out. Just imagine him as like a person. And just as like a totally boring person. And then now what's different about the fact that they made him into a droid? What's different about the fact that they made him, with like unable to speak? Like, what does that add to the story? Just having that comparison. You can do it for scenes also, that, if you have a, with the You're Perfect thing, I think it's, Soko telling Jinx you're perfect. Everyone expected that to be I love you, something like that. So just imagining the basic version of that of a scene, that will that'll help you understand kind of what's going on there. Okay. Have you watched Attack on Titan? I watched the first season, and I've heard it's gotten a lot better, but I have not come back to it. What inspired you to create your webcomic Minor Champion? Any tips to someone who wants to come up with a good first idea for a webcomic? Tips for people who want to come up with ideas. I don't really know, but I made that just for fun. It ended up getting produced. I was trying to produce a lot of things, and that was only one that actually ended up getting made. But yeah, if you don't know, then I have a webcomic that is about a superhero who is like very, very serious about solving really small issues. And that type of idea has always been funny to me, of someone who takes things that are not supposed to be taken seriously, someone who takes them very, very, very seriously. So I forgot what idea specifically made me think of like that character in those situations, but yeah, that was it. Here's a question. Is there anything you would criticize in Arcane? Not like Marcus, where they managed to use the character in a good way, but something that's just wrong with the series because I can't. Yeah, so people asked me also, I got comments about the biggest flaw in Arcane. And it's a really good question. Something that I do plan on making a video about at some point is the Chem Barons subplot. I was really not happy with that. And I think it does have redeeming qualities. It does have a purpose, but that part of the story was what I found the most I guess I don't want to say underdeveloped. I don't know. That was what I had the most problems with. Okay, Naomi Hoyt asks, when writing a story, do you think you should write the character's base foundation and the arc you want them to go through, and then their change, or do you write the story overall first and then the people? Well, okay. So if you're asking should, I don't think I think different people will do different things. If you're asking what I do personally, I like to think about the change first. I like to think about like that moment of where everything changes for the character when everything fails, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, I mean, with writing, then you can start anywhere. Someone else asked me that. Let me find the question. Someone else asked me. Okay. Someone else asked me, where do you start first? Someone asked me, what was the first thing you... Hold on. I can't find the question. Someone asked me, where do you start first with a story? And someone else asked me, what is advice for writing plot if you're someone who focuses on characters? And the thing that I don't see people talking about, which is kind of what I like to do, is focusing on like the change, focusing on like the place I used to start with every story was the midpoint reversal, like when everything goes bad and then how that changes. And then I kind of work your way out from the middle. People say start from the end. I think it's kind of the same idea. But I think that's something that can be interesting for people who focus on characters when they write. Then if they have multiple characters, thinking about some situation where the different arcs that the characters are going through would converge. Some kind of similar situation where, like, through serendipity, then like you would have one event which means different things for the different characters' arcs. I think that could be a way to kind of focus where you're going with the plot. And then, like, in terms of what comes first for people in general, like if you like, it could either be like like when I talk about a change, it could either be like a change that you are hoping that the character goes through, a change in a situation in a plot. Like, let's say, like, if there's something interesting to you about some kind of conflict involving fighting, then what kind of loss is interesting to you? A character, characters, or like a cause losing. Like, what kind of interesting situation could come from that, and then how could that turn around? Just think about the changes. I think that's good fertile ground. Question: when you make a video, you usually talk very fast, and content in general is very information dense. Is this conscious? If so, why do you do it like this? Yeah, so people ask me a lot about my talking speed. I'm usually just very excited when I make videos, and I generally talk fast. I am from I guess people around me just talk very fast, so yeah, that's that. Okay, let's see other questions. Okay, Alicia Pisha asked as a comment. Oh, Sable Phoenix. Have you seen Babylon 5? Not. I highly recommend watching, analyzing. I have not. I've had it recommended to me. I will keep it in mind. Thank you for the recommendation. Okay, so Alicia Pisha asked, I love all your Kane analysis videos. I have a few questions for you. If you could sit down and have a conversation with Christian and Alex, the creators of Arcane, for those who are unfamiliar, what would you say and what questions would you want to ask them? Okay, very good question. So, yeah, I would love to sit down with any Arcane writers. The biggest question that I have is I've heard that episode 1 was rewritten 6 times, and I'm really interested in what went into that. I want to know, did they have some? Was it logistical reasons that they had to change things? Was it that they had original vision for what they were setting up, and then they had to change what they were setting up? Were certain characters not working? Were certain plot lines not working? Were they going to start at a different starting point and then they decided to start where they did. I know it is, it's interesting that they started with like with the bridge scene. It was like was that always where they're planning on starting? I mean, it makes sense now, but thinking about where. Oh yeah, and then the other thing that I'm curious about was the thing that only episode 1 does is episode 1 is the only episode that where we're only in the Undercity and we're only with those Undercity characters. I would not be surprised at all if they tried to start out the like the whole plotline with Jace in episode 1, and then they moved all of that to episode 2 if they couldn't get that right, or if they wanted to like make sure the story focused on Vine Powder. That's what I would ask about. I would also ask about Marcus if that kind of went how they planned it. I have a theory on Marcus that he used to be multiple characters. I think that it would make sense if they started out writing like 3 characters, because so he's the only after Grayson dies, and he's the only named enforcer. So I've wondered if they had 2 or 3 named enforcers beforehand, and then they condensed that character into a single character. And that's kind of why you had these things that I don't know. I guess didn't quite fit. Things that didn't feel so complete because they had to find ways to work that all into one character. Okay. Punchmaster asked, "How do you ask the best questions when examining a story?" Good question. I think finding things that are different and finding things that are finding things that don't make sense. So if what I mean by different is if something stands out to you, then that is something that needs to be examined. So what you're specifically looking for, or what I would specifically look for, is when I'm looking at a scene that impacts me a lot, then I would look for things that stick out as like, okay, they were doing this thing specifically. They wanted to make sure that they did the scene this way. They paced it this way. They had a character say this line. This line impacted me a lot when I heard it. And then trying to figure that out. Asking if something doesn't make sense in terms of feeling consistent with the character, or if a character goes through a change, then trying to figure out what caused that, trying to figure out, trying to really define what the contradiction is, what doesn't make sense about that. Yeah, that's a good starting point. Can you do a video telling the strategies and methods the writers of Arcane did right that can improve other shows? Yeah. I mean, hopefully a lot of what I say, is stuff that can be applied to other shows. I'm thinking about doing a video where, because I noticed like little things, especially when I'm going through and I'm finding footage for videos, then like I'll notice like a little thing that I want to talk about, but like it's either like it's either too long for like a 1-minute video, or it's too short for even like a 1 minute. So I've been thinking about doing a video where I just say like, here's like 50 like little writing tips like from Arcane that are like either things that don't fit in my other formats of videos. Okay, would I live in Piltover or Zon if I lived in Arcane? I think Piltover. I think most people would probably say Piltover because it's more comfortable. And I would just, I would just have to be that arrogant, oppressive scholar who looks down on everyone else. Would I rather fight 100 Heimerdinger-sized Vi, or 1 Vi-sized Heimerdinger? 1 Vi-sized Heimerdinger. I think. Well, I don't know about Yordles and magic, so I don't know. I don't know if that would mess things up. Have you heard of the YouTube channel Hello Future Me? I think I have seen videos from that guy. Yeah. Okay. Let us go back to my list here. Rain, what made you become a writer? I think I've always been writing. I think it's just a compulsion. I used to make little comics when I was a little kid, just like drawn out on like printer paper, and then I started writing like my first like novel-esque thing when I was like 10, 9, something like that. Just like I think inspired by like video games and stuff like that. And then I was writing a little bit in high school, and I was just doing it as a hobby. And then what made me take it more seriously, like I mentioned earlier, was One Piece. That like once I was like, oh, this is what a story can do. I want to do this. That's kind of how that happened. Where are you at? I'm visiting my parents right now. That is where I'm at. I'm leaving tomorrow. How do you make a good plot? I'm crafting a story and I can't figure out the middle. Yeah, middles are really hard. What I would suggest doing, I think if you're having trouble with the middle, and that means you have a good beginning, then that means you might have a good plot already. It's just that you're having trouble finding out how to make it interesting. And this isn't like great advice, but something that can make things more interesting, especially in the middle, is finding ways to change up the pacing. If something is boring in your story, then skip it. Find like a creative way to skip it and go to something else. Find ways to take changes that feel slow and make them feel much more violent and much more jarring. Much have something that could be expected, but present it in a way that the audience will see it as unexpected. If you are if something happens, like for example, like if something is happening where like the characters, if something's happening through conversation, if some change is happening like through conversation, let's say, then find other physical things the character can do that can make that same change happen through action, even if it's while the conversation is happening. If you have something like a training arc or something like that, where the characters are like just getting better at something, then change up the setting, change up which characters that they're dealing with. You know, like if it's just like one guy teaching your main character how to do something, then if you have like multiple people teaching them, and now we have like each chapter is like a new person, that makes things more interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my list. Okay, this person, sorry, so Max Mello asked an interesting question on my video. He said, for the Q&A, how do we as people learn to understand enough about the world to write different characters? And he said, would the answer just be to observe the world, observe media? But what if you feel the media misses things that you feel would have brought more interest, or simply told a story that was supposed to be seen, but not a story where it's ambiguously real? How do you learn to write something you have a passion for without being blinded by it? Yeah, really, really good questions. Let me think about that. So, the world. Yeah, there's a piece of advice that my I think observing the world definitely is true. I mean, I think I don't know when observe media. I think probably where Max's question is coming from is that things don't seem real when he watches them. He'll notice. It sounds like is someone who will be watching someone, and they'll notice that something doesn't seem realistic in the story. And I think you can learn a lot just from that experience of finding something unrealistic, that you can stop and try to define what that is. Try to define what is feeling unrealistic about it. But yeah, it's a really good question. Not enough about the world to write different characters. Yeah, I think honestly, your proposal of just observe the world, learning history, reading actual biographies and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm gonna think about that, and then if I think of a more detailed answer, I will I will respond to your comment specifically. That's really good question. Let's see. Why do you think Savika told all the creeps in the bar to leave? Surely they could easily take her down together. Savika, oddly enough, I think is the most honorable character in terms of things like that in the series. I think even more so than Vi. Something that struck me as interesting was in the very first scene, the very first fight scene in Arcane, then Vi shows Vi, like the whole group shows they don't really fight clean, so to speak. Like Vi does the whole move where she says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to give you some of the loot," and then she bashes him in the face when he looks away. Clagger throws dust in the guy's eyes. So it is interesting that like within the context of like Vi being a pretty honorable character, being like a pretty good character, then she is not into, like not into necessarily always fighting in like in the most clean. She has the surprise attack on Savika. I think Savika does kind of try to take people more one-on-one, kind of in that like mano y mano kind of way. Jeremy Munune asked in the Echo video, you mentioned you visited Kenya. I live there. LMAO. Plan on visiting again. While you're there, what did you like? I thought Kenya was a really interesting place. I really like there's like an air of, I guess like entrepreneurship that I found really just like exciting. That like it really seems like people are like building that country up. I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was interesting that there's a national park in the middle of Nairobi, in the middle of the capital city, that's not fenced off. So like the animals like come to the park and then they leave, and like you can technically like like encounter like one of these like a lion like in the middle of the city because their national park is not fenced off. I don't think that would probably actually happen. Where in Kenya specifically? Nairobi, yes. Yeah, I wasn't there for that long. I was just I was only there for a few days. I left the day actually of I left the morning. There's that awful Al-Shabaab attack at that hotel. I left that morning, not knowing about the attack, but I heard about it at the airport. What would you rate Arcane out of 10? I would rate it 10. Please show the shirt. I need a fit check. Yeah, so I want to show you guys this. This is my Jinx shirt. I got it on Redbubble. Yeah, I'm a fan of the shirt. You have any favorite OST in Arcane? The bridge, she's back. So I haven't listened to the soundtrack itself a lot. I've listened to the songs a lot. I do like the song during the Jinx Echo fight. I like the Sting song at the end. How do you write your videos? Do you write everything before recording? Do you just improvise and then write down what you thought? I read everything beforehand. Okay. Have you seen Over the Garden Wall? No, I have not. I will take it into consideration. Guns for Hire kills me. Me too. If Guns for Hire kills you, then be on the lookout in the coming weeks. That's all I'll say. Okay. Let's see other questions. Okay, one of my patrons asked, every video I watch makes of yours makes me think about the content of Arcane in new ways. I want to apply these lessons to a D&D game, and often come short like above. How do you go about your process? How can I take those lessons and apply them to a communal storytelling project like tabletop role-playing games like D&D, World of Darkness, TORPG, or TORG? Yeah, so I'm not so familiar with D&D. That's a good question. I guess, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I talk about in my Arcane videos is thematic. I guess like thematic cohesion, thematic union. I don't really know. I know it's like its own type of storytelling, like being a dungeon master and stuff like that. So I'm not familiar with what that entails. But having some kind of unified thing that you can steer people towards thematically, I think is probably the thing that might make that experience more interesting. And like I said, I've never really done this, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I think it would be a cool experience if you're a dungeon master, let's say, and then the people in your game start, realizing that there is some big overarching thing that they're going through together, that yeah. And I don't know, I feel like I don't really know what I'm talking about with not knowing how these games work, but yeah, that's what I talk about mostly in my videos. So I think that's probably what could help things. Doesn't matter how much you prep, they're just going to throw it off the rails. Yeah, that's what I would expect. Yeah, if I think of a better answer, then I'll answer you specifically. That comment. Okay. Sakura Hanuro, not Haruno, asked me, what I want to know is, did Vander betray Silco before or after the opening fight on the bridge? Because Vander on the bridge has his beard, we can't see his arm. There's Scarlet. Yeah, I've wondered about this too. I will probably make a short about it. Second thing I want to know, is Silco's eye a donated eye? Because the woman that was threatening Huck had eyes similar to Silco's dark eye. That's interesting. Yeah, I always just assumed it was just like an infected eye, and that other people in the industry would have a similar infection. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, someone asked me, Freckled asked me in the chat, last song seems to be slower and tells a lot about the You Change mystery that you made a video about. Did you take the song into consideration? I did not take the song into consideration when I was thinking about that video, but I do think that there's a lot to talk about with that song. At some point, I want to make. Someone asked me also about the music. Their thoughts about the music. I do have a lot of thoughts about the music. I have to think about how I want to make a video on that, because I guess it's I'm not someone who knows music. I can analyze lyrics and stuff like that, but I can't. I have to figure out how to analyze music specifically, since I don't know that much about it. What do you think about the Vander Warwick theory? I think it's a good theory. Do you know League lore? How do you take into consideration? I don't play League, and I did not play League before I saw Arcane. If something relates to the lore, I try to learn as much as I can about it. But yeah, I don't. I'm not a League player. Okay, Combiney asks, I will love. Okay, so please answer the following question completely trusting your gut. Just tell us your very first thought. Doesn't matter how realistic or likely it is. I'm simply interested in your first emotionally biased thought. Okay, Jinx is your favorite character. True. How do you wish her character arc / story to end? Where and how do you want her to end up at the end of Arcane? My gut wants a scene where she and Vi settle their personal conflict and have like a reunion moment, but are still on different sides. I think that's probably how I want that to end. But yeah, I don't think it's going to end very, very cleanly, knowing Arcane. You said before that some things are interesting to you as a writer. What did you write? Can we read your work somewhere? I do have a short story that is published. I have a few. I have a few publishing credits. I think only one of them is available online. I'm actually going to talk about it in a video at some point soon, because it relates to the topic I'm going to be talking about. And then I've written. So I have my webcomic, which I link in my videos. And then I've been working on a novel for a long time, which is about a gaming community, a professional gaming community. But I was having some trouble with it, and I have taken a break. Someone asked me about applying the lessons in Arcane to my own writing. The biggest thing that I want that I'm looking forward to applying. I don't have that much time to write, like with making videos and stuff. At some point, I'm going to slow down and have time to write again. But I really want to apply stuff about side characters to my writing. That was something that I have a lot of trouble with, so hopefully I'll be able to apply a lot of that. Ian Spears says, thanks for all your work, Schnee. Congrats on 72.9K. Thank you very much. Jasmine asks, do you prefer your analytical academic writing or your creative novel writing? I think probably, well, I'll say this. I like analytical academic writing on the average because I know what I want to say and I just have to figure out how to say it. With creative writing, then like I feel like 70% of the time it's very frustrating, and then that juicy 30%, like that's much better than writing anything else. Yeah. Who's your least favorite Arcane character? Marcus. Least moral Arcane character. Marcus or Singed, probably. What role do you expect Ambassador to play in season 2? Okay, yeah. So people also ask me a lot of questions about season 2. I'm gonna make a video on that. So I will not say anything now. Let me look at other questions. Dimitri asks, do you think integrating religion to the next season or the one after that would be a good or interesting idea? The universe has Jana and the Glorious Evolution, so there's a basis. I read recently the little book about League lore that Riot put out, and I was surprised at how much religious stuff there was in there. I don't really have an opinion on it. I think it's going to be, I trust the Arcane writers to make it interesting. But yeah, it's going to be a lot different than what we had this season. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what they do with it. I don't think religion in stories goes over that well. But yeah, favorite Star Wars character, Darth Vader. Do you skateboard? No, I do not. Okay, Wink Chin asks how Arcane's fight scenes, I guess, get us all hyped up and then shock us the brutal reality of the violence. I do plan to do a video on the fight scenes at some point soon. I've already written most of it actually, but I just have to find a time I want to do it. Have I watched Moon Knight? No. How do I make my stories and writing not cliche nowadays? That's a good question. I think embracing cliches is probably the way to differentiate yourself nowadays. I think if you honestly embrace tropes, a lot of people are trying too hard to subvert, I think. Do I watch anime? I do. I have not watched recently. Can you make a 1 minute 1 minute on Soko's eye infection and medicine? I believe I already did. Well, I made something about the eye drop stuff. I don't have much to say beyond that. Do I use Disney Plus? Not really. If Arcane didn't exist, what show do you think you'd be diving this deep into? One Piece I have dived this deeply into. Yeah, I mean, what I mentioned before, I think a lot about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, Ghibli movies, other anime, like I think there's lots to say on Naruto. Fooly Cooly was one of the first things I really analyzed deeply. Okay. What are your top 10 favorite characters of all time and why? That's a good question. My favorite characters are, let's see. So Jinx is now probably up there. Whitebeard in One Piece and Jiraiya in Naruto. Aragorn might be up there. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. If I think of a full 10, I will comment on your comment and go back to it. Favorite animated shows? Ola Lula Aremu asks, top 10 animated shows, list of movies. I don't know if I can give you 10 off the top of my head. My favorite movies of all time are Fellowship of the Ring, Spirited Away, Gangs of New York, Big Trouble in Little China. Big Short, I thought was done really well. I have a lot to say about that. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of 10 off the top of my head. Favorite Arcane character is Jinx. Let's see. What else are people asking on my list? Where did I first hear about Arcane? I think Twitter. I think I was watching. So if you guys don't know the story, I told this at the end of one of my videos. I was at an Airbnb. I don't have Netflix. But I was at an Airbnb that had Netflix for free, and I was watching Squid Game, and I saw people talking about Arcane on Twitter, and I saw like multiple different people from like multiple different like scenes and stuff like that I follow, saying that it was amazing. And I was like, okay, I have free Netflix, I'll try it out, and so went history. Do a top 3 favorite characters in Arcane. Jinx and Vi are the top 2. Probably Mel after that. Yeah, I think Mel after that. What would be the easiest bad movie / character to rewrite? That's a good question. Easiest bad character to rewrite. My gut says Anakin Skywalker, but I think that'd be a lot harder than I'm thinking. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, I have a lot of like little ones. Like there's a lot of times I'll be watching a movie and I'll think like they should have started this like at the 20 minutes in, or they should have ended this like 20 minutes before the end. Like I don't know if like I remember one of the first movies I had like this thought about was the movie Hugo. I remember I saw it in theaters and I was like, this movie would be so much better on mute. Like they just didn't have any dialogue. It would make the sense of wonder a lot more. Or like the movie, the Cloverfield movie where they were like in the bunker. That should have ended like 10 minutes earlier. But yeah, I often feel like I'm watching a movie and I'm like where's this whole intro? Like this intro doesn't do anything. Do I like traveling? I love traveling. Will we keep this live as video? I intend to. Do I have a favorite trope? Like it's done a lot, but you still like it. I love the thing that I love is I love characters who are like have to be like introduced to the world. Who like there's something I don't know if it's the same trope as like broken characters, but like characters like Laura in Logan. Logan is also one of my favorite movies. Where it's like she has been in captivity the entire time, and then like seeing all the interactions between her and like the actual world where she's like this like monster. Things like that I really like. It's probably my favorite trope. What Arcane episode is my favorite? Either 6 or 9. Favorite books? My favorite book is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Favorite nonfiction book is probably King Leopold's Ghost, about the Congolese genocide. That really opened my eyes a lot. What do I think makes a good story? So this is another thing I'm going to be dealing with in my next long video, but I think so my 3 standards for what makes a good story, and like I guess also what makes a good scene and a good character, are emotional power, interesting, and beauty. So powerful, beautiful, interesting. Powerful is the only one. Powerful and interesting, I think, are more defined. If you want to go through an emotional journey in stories, and the people go to stories to see like a concentrated version of like what they experience in real life, both for the sense of catharsis, but also just like for the like to feel the emotions that people like feeling. So that is category 1. Category 2, beauty. is the really amorphous one. Sometimes you just see a story and just like the way it goes, there's like an elegance to like, I guess, like sometimes it's like the how things fit together or how it communicates certain things, or just there's an experience of beauty in the same way as like seeing a beautiful painting. And then interesting if a story makes me understand something about the world or makes me consider something from a perspective I haven't considered before. Do I like Into the Spider-Verse? Yes, I do like it. I think I liked it more on my second watch than my first watch. I was not expecting what it became when I first started watching it, so it took me a little, kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But once I realized what it was, then I really did like it. Have you watched My Hero Academia? I watched a little bit of it. I thought it was okay. I didn't continue for some reason. How do you go about pulling themes from stories to level of depth you do? Do you connect it to other works outside the story? I don't really connect it to other works. In terms of pulling themes from stories, it's just I mentioned some of this before. Just trying to ask as many questions as I can. Trying to ask good questions. Do I game? If so, what? My only game is Magic the Gathering. I played Magic the Gathering for a long, long time, like since 1996. So that's one of the other things that kind of got me into Arcane. That I've been hoping for a Magic the Gathering movie or a TV show at some point, and when I saw League of Legends doing one, especially one that seemed a lot. What world is it? There's one of the planes in Magic is very similar to Piltover. What am I thinking of? The one with energy. But when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is like if I can just watch this and pretend this is a Magic the Gathering movie, then Magic the Gathering TV show, then Kaladesh, yeah, Kaladesh." So when I saw Arcane, I was like, "This is like a Kaladesh / Ravnica movie." It's like if I just pretend these are Magic the Gathering characters, then like I'll be fulfilled. That hole will finally be filled. Let's see. Do I watch cartoons? Some cartoons. I don't know. Avatar. I thought was fine. Do you hope to do YouTube or content creation as a full-time job one day? Not full-time job. I want to have YouTube and writing. Do you ever watch Interstellar? Interstellar was one of these one of those movies that I wish would have ended partway in. If it had ended when they first saw Matt Damon, I think. I don't remember the movie that much, but yeah, I thought it was great until then, and then after that, then I was not very happy with it. I was pretty unhappy with it. I did not see the new Batman movie. Let's see. Yeah, Vyborn says Kaladesh X Golgari. Yeah, plus Simic also with the Victor. Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once? No, but I want to. Have you seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars? I've seen most of it. I thought it was fine. Okay, let's see other from this. Okay, I'm actually going to go to another list of questions that I have. What are people asking here? Okay, do you believe that most of your analyses are correct, or are you reading too much into it? So I do believe that they're correct. When people talk about reading too much into stuff or overanalyzing, here's what I think is going on. I think what's going on is that they're confusing what the work itself does with what the author intent was. And I don't think that writers always have a specific intent in mind when they're writing something, like with all like the little, like the little nuances and stuff like that. I think a lot of this stuff comes automatically, like as part of the creative process. I think a lot of it is intuitive. But once it's there, then the reason why it works is what my goal is to analyze. So sometimes that overlaps with the author intent. But when I see something that is like reading a lot into it, then I'm seeing that as me analyzing why this works, not necessarily what the writers were thinking. Yeah, and these are all things which I think are kind of going on in the background during the writing process. They're there. They're in the work. That's why people, you'll see a scene will be powerful, and you'll pick up on something. Some things will seem important to you, of like, oh yeah, this thing. I don't know why this made me feel this, but this thing, really evoked some emotion in me. So that's what my goal is to analyze. And I think Jinx can redeem herself even after the horrible things she has done in season 1. Redeem herself. I don't know if redeem yourself, if you mean by that, redeem yourself like she would be doing so much good that it would outweigh the bad she did. I don't necessarily think that's. I don't know if it could happen. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think she could find herself on the good side at some point. I don't think that there's going to be a good side just knowing Arcane, but yeah. Top 5 Ghibli movies. Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, Porco Rosso. I don't know what 5 would be. Have I been to Europe? I was in Europe when I saw Arcane. I was in Iceland. Yeah, I've been to I've been to like Italy, France, UK, Germany, Poland, Greece. Yeah. How do you meet Typhoon, the guy from my Echo video? He was a tour guide on my tour in Nairobi. What are my thoughts on the Mandalorian? Mandalorian, I did not like very much. The first 3 episodes were okay. Oh, just right away, Grave of Fireflies is probably done well, but it's too dark. It's too dark for me to say that I enjoy it. So what was I answering before? Mandalorian. So first 3 episodes I thought were okay. After that, it kind of, I don't know, kind of went downhill. My big theory on Star Wars, or not theory, but my big opinion on Star Wars is that without Jedi and the Force, then it's not really Star Wars. At least it's not what makes us, like it's not what makes Star Wars like it's just a sci-fi story at that point, or just like a space opera. So that's also why, even if Rogue One had been good, I don't think I would have liked it, because it's not the Force. Book of Boba Fett was worse. That was the impression I got also. What other characters from LoL do you think would you like to see during the next season? I don't know that many characters in LoL, but yeah, some of the characters that I've seen from the my favorite LoL cinematic is Awaken. Yeah, so the characters in that, I'm very curious about what their stories are. I want to see those characters. Let's see. I'm pretty sure you mentioned you write stories. What genre? I like writing fantasy and sci-fi, but I also the main thing that I'm working on is just like a YA type fiction that takes place in like the real world. Okay, Arcane has some really dark theories. Really dark themes, arcs, etc., but it doesn't feel heavy to watch, at least for me. Do you have any theories on how they executed and made it dark? The dark horse not overbearing. What do you mean by that? What do you mean that it's not overbearing? Because episode 3 was definitely overbearing. I mean, there's a limit on the gruesomeness. It doesn't feel dark in that sense. Like, I just watched. I won't spoil any of this, but I just watched The Northman, and that was gruesome. That was dark in a way that Arcane is not. Arcane does not have that. Freckle asks, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that we know the characters of Arcane before the show aired? Meaning, I mean, like people who knew the game, they knew how things were going to go. It's interesting that it creates a different kind of anticipation when you know how things are going to turn out. This is the idea, I think, behind when some people say that spoilers are not a bad thing, that like you'll enjoy it as much if something is spoiled for you, which I don't agree with. But I think what they're talking about is that if there's something that is, you know, what's going to happen, you're waiting for it to happen. Like I didn't know that much about League, but I knew who Jinx was, and when I saw Powder, I didn't know who she was. But then when Milo said, when Milo called her Jinx for the first time, I was like, oh man, like is that is that what's going on here? So so knowing that layered on another type of anticipation. That was interesting. Yeah, so I think that was, you know, I think that was fine. I think that was good. How important do you think music in the show is? I think it's very important. DC or Marvel? DC. I watched the Batman. No. Okay, what other questions we got here? Okay. What was the first story you fell in love with? So I Cook Me asked, what was the first story you fell in love with and picked apart to see how it worked? I think the first story that I really analyzed, I really wanted to analyze, see what was going on there, was Fooly Cooly, just because it was so weird, but it was also so powerful, so I wanted to figure out what was going on. Alien asks, why is always dead Milo whispering things to Jinx? Because he was the one who created that identity for her. Schnee has a face. He does. Where'd I get my shirt? Redbubble. What other show do you think did it better, close to as good as Arcane? Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned One Piece a few times. I think One Piece does as good of a job. Recently, shows I enjoyed that were not on. I think, you know, Arcane was the top show, but I really like Queen's Gambit. I thought they did a really good job. Stranger Things season 1, I thought was excellent. How much of League lore have I read? I read the book. I got that Runeterra book and I read that, but I don't know that much about League lore. How come I don't like Force Awakens so much? I'm very curious. It was like a okay. So I don't think things being derivative are necessarily bad. If you're going to continue a series, then continue a series. Don't just remake episode 4, but worse. So that was the main thing. I really expected them to like tell a new story, but there's so much more you could do in the Star Wars universe. Like there's so many interesting stories you could tell, but they just tried to retell episode 4, probably just because they were trying to be safe and make something that they, you know, go to the formula they knew would work. I thought Rey was a likable character, but I didn't think that she was very interesting. The Stormtrooper guy, I thought was an utterly forgettable character. I was not impressed with him. And Kylo Ren, I thought was terrible. And I don't know how other people reacted to him. In the theater that I saw it, then the scene where he takes off his mask, then everyone bursts out laughing. Yeah, people just I don't know how people can take him seriously. And you know, everything that was interesting about like Darth Vader and you know, the other masked character that they're trying to, I don't know, I guess they're trying to do something based on, did not happen. You know, like Darth Vader, he has this this real menacing, quiet aggression to him, and you're really afraid of him. And Kylo Ren is like a kid throwing a tantrum. So that was very disappointing to me. And yeah, it was just a lot of, you know, like a lot of things they're trying to copy episode 4, trying to copy episode 6, and it just you know was worse. You know, like the fact that like, you know, in episode 4, then Luke destroys the Death Star, and if you're going to redo that, at least have the main character destroy the Death Star. But you have this other guy who it's like who even is he? You have him destroying it. I don't know. It was yeah, it was very disappointing. Kylo was the only character in sequels I liked. Why do you like him? I'm curious. You think Vi will become an enforcer? I think so. Remember when Star Wars said "Remember Star Wars"? Was that Oh, was that like okay? So I think the thing that they did with referencing some of the stuff they did with referencing the old movies as like lore, I thought that could have been interesting. I was happy that spoilers. Yeah, spoilers if you haven't seen the new Star Wars or if you care about the new Star Wars. But I was happy that Rey was a Palpatine. Well, after Force Awakens, then I didn't care so much. But I was hoping. I saw the theory that she was a Palpatine in back when Force Awakens came out. I was like, I hope this is what happens, and it did happen. So at least that was something. I do a video on how Arcane writes kids and gives them agency. Interesting. Hey Schnee, do you love Avatar, like the Blue Alien movie? Please do a video about it. I remember thinking it was fine. I didn't particularly fall in love with it. Will we see other kingdoms in season 2? I expect we will see more about Noxus. I like Kylo because I felt he was the only character that was multidimensional. Everyone else I found very interesting. That's fair. Did you already say what you think about the prequels? I love episode 1 on a personal level, not on like an actual story. Yeah, I don't know. Every time I see episode 1, it gets better. And I know that it's a lot of personal bias, but yeah, like if you can just compartmentalize for a little bit and pretend that Anakin and Jar Jar are like kind of separate from like, I don't know. Yeah. But then episode 2 and episode 3, I obviously don't like very much. After the Star Wars movies, Rian Johnson directed. What do you think of Knives Out? I love Knives Out. I thought it was incredible. Rian Johnson also did a movie called Brick, which was really good. I don't know if it wasn't Joseph Gordon-Levitt's breakout role, but it was one of his earlier roles. I thought it was I thought it was a really interesting movie. Would you ever talk more about fashion, Arcane? I have thought about that. People talk about the difference between the fashion of the Undercity characters and Piltover characters. I thought that's interesting. Opinions on the MCU? I think it's overrated. I think it's it probably is overrated. They do their thing and it's good. I really like the Spider-Man movies. I liked Endgame. I thought that was really good. I liked the first and third Iron Man movies. Yeah, I think it is. I have a take it or leave it kind of feeling about Marvel. I have a friend who's really, really into Marvel, who explained to me the themes behind everything that I don't like. And I can't summarize it for you now, but suffice to say, there's a lot about Marvel that I'm not understanding. So I think that probably has to do with stuff I don't enjoy. Congrats, me love your analyses. Thank you. What is my least favorite episode of Arcane? Episode 7 up until the bridge fight, maybe. Least favorite story. That's interesting. One of the worst movies I saw recently. Let me look up what this was. I think. Yeah, there's a movie called The Accountant, which I thought was one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time. Have I seen WandaVision? I thought WandaVision was really interesting. I thought that was Marvel doing something different and it working. Yeah, I liked it. Are there things you'd like to examine in Arcane, but it's from a topic that you don't know well, like we said about music? The other big one is architecture, and I'm talking with someone in France who is helping me understand some stuff between the architecture in Piltover and Paris. And then actually today I'm meeting with a friend of mine who's an architect, and I want to talk to him about some things. How many times Kaladin Stormbless asks, how many times have you had to rewatch Arcane for your videos? I watched the full thing 2.5 times, and then I've obviously watched all the little clips that I have like 1 billion times. So have I been watching Moon Knight? I have not been watching Moon Knight. Thoughts on Donnie Darko? I have not seen it. Let's see some other things. Okay. So I'm just looking at my other list of questions. Is there a deeper meaning behind the local cuisine guy? I am going to upload a short on that Tuesday. Here's a teaser. Him and the guy who licks everything. If you guys know who I'm talking about. I think those characters are related in their function. Are you surprised by which videos do well? Yeah. I'm also surprised. I made a video about one of my worst performing videos is a video about Jace and Iron Man, and I really like that video, and it did not do very well, and I don't know why. I don't really understand the algorithm. How do you get to analyze media? I analyze media because I want to be a better writer. Okay, looking at my questions again. What's the one thing in Arcane that makes the least sense to you? A small change you'd make it to make sense? That's a good question. This is from Not Nilk. That makes the least sense. Okay, in terms of making sense, I'm not sure, but the small change I would make, I think making Marcus 2 characters would be very helpful. If you made Marcus into a husband and a wife, and they're both trying to take care of their little daughter, and there was an interplay between them about the corruption that one or the other of them was involved in. I don't think there's enough time to make that plot, to make that subplot. I think that would be good. Yeah, I have to think about how I would fix the Kim Barron's subplot also, if I could do anything to that. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Do I plan on playing League? No, I don't think so. People told me not to play League, so I don't think so. Okay, there's a recurring theme of sacrifice. One sacrificing one now to save the death of many later. Some characters choose one way, others choose the other way. Who do we agree with and why, since they don't seem to be consistent in principle? That's a good question. I think sacrifice is an interesting main topic of morality that I don't know where I stand about it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those. I mentioned this in the gray morality video about how asking unanswerable questions is a good way to make your series morally ambiguous, and the question of one person giving themselves up to save many people is something that people can't seem to agree with IRL. So it's a good thing to make a morally ambiguous story about. Who do I agree with and why? Yeah, I think in most cases I would probably save myself selfishly. If I had a family, if I was married with kids, then that answer would probably change. I think it's a good question in terms of like the fiction, but like it's like a super big question just in morality and ethics in general. Most moral Arcane character, Kate. Yeah, probably Kate. Do I think there's a hidden theme in Arcane about how wars never end? They pause, and peace is willful ignorance. Maybe reading too deep. No, I think I read about that. Yeah, Echo also. Echo also is very moral. Do you think Vi will ever be able to accept Jinx as she is? Um, my gut would say no. I don't think so, but who knows? Do you think season 2 will be as good as season 1 or worse? I hope it's going to be as good as season 1. Yeah, I know, you know, like what they did is so amazing that who knows if they can if they can do it again. Season 2 is going to take less time. Also, I know they've done most of it already, probably, but yeah. What's my life philosophy? I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know. Do I expect there to be another time jump in season 2? I don't think so. I'm going to make a longer video about season 2 at some point, but something that I saw some interview with Christian and Alex when they're asking about season 2, and they mentioned that there was something, I guess, a phraseology that they kept using was that season 2 is going to be finishing a lot of season 1, and they want to move on to other stories that they can tell within the League universe. So I think it's probably going to be that they continue the story from where we left off and finish that storyline, and then season 3 will probably reference back to what happened in seasons 1 and 2, but it's going to have a different focus. So I think that means no time skip, but who knows? Either season 1 and 2 are written together, so I think the yes. Oh, that's interesting. I did not hear that. Do you think Jinx could be a mentor to another character, even leader in season 2? That's an interesting question. Mentor to another character? I don't think she could be a mentor. I don't know if she has that in her. A leader. I've seen people try to figure out who's going to be like the leader of the Undercity. If it's going to be, Jinx is going to be a leadership role, or if Savika is going to be more in a leadership role. It's hard to see Jinx in any kind of leadership role. I think just thinking about anyone else. But yeah, I'm not sure. The thing that I'll maybe I'll go into this more in my season 2 prediction video. The thing that I would love to see is a mentorship between Jace and Jinx. I think that would be really, really interesting, because like they are so similar. I think in terms of like their the chaos of them, and I think I think it'd be interesting if they end up on the same side somehow. What do you think would be better, 8 Arcane seasons or breaking down to several series films? What do you mean by that? Breaking down to several series and films? I mean, I think as series then it's better. I don't think films would be as good. Let's see what else. I think Jinx will be accepted now that Sicko is dead by Savika. No, I don't think so. How would Jace mentoring Jinx even come about? I expect there's going to be some larger conflict between Piltover Zahn and some other big polity, some other big political entity. So if Piltover and Zahn are on the same side, that's what would make my dream of seeing some kind of like sibling relationship that Vi and Jinx never had between Jace and Jinx. Not shipping, just like a mentorship or brother sister kind of thing. Can you do a video on why you think or don't think the Vi should become a Enforcer or lose her memories enough to forget Powder? That's interesting. I think that Vi should become an Enforcer. I think that's going to be interesting for her. Let's see. Favorite One Piece moments. Marineford was my favorite arc of anything of all time, and I think this stuff I'm going to talk about this in my video next Sunday. Walk to Arlong Park is one of my favorite moments, and a lot of scenes in Enia's lobby. Okay, back to my list. Thoughts on the man that saved Jinx and his mother? I don't think that's going to be a character. I think that's just supposed to be a random guy. It'd be interesting if they brought him back. Okay, let me look at some other. I had writing questions all listed as one. Let's see, my writing questions. What got you interested in writing in the first place? I think I answered most of that. Do I plan to make stories my own public in some kind of public format? The plan eventually is to polish up the novel. I have this novel that I've been working on that just needs to be really polished up and like given some good revisions, and then to make that public and then talk about it on my YouTube channel. There's the plan. How do you think the Vine Caitlin's relationship will be affected? Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how that's gonna play out. I think it's gonna be a big focus on in the next season. Elijah Stormbless said, "Do you have an elevator pitch for your novel?" My elevator pitch is that it's two teenage girls who become professional gamers of a game which is kind of an underground is an underground scene, and one of them has a lot of, I guess, physical challenges, and the other one has a lot of mental challenges, and they have diametrically opposite personalities that complement each other. One of them is a wild risk taker, and the other one is very meek and very safe, and has a very technical approach to gaming. And it's based on the Super Smash Bros. Melee community, their story, and some of the people I found inspiring within that community. I actually would have enjoyed English lessons if you were my teacher. Thank you so much for the look. Thank you so much. If Mel survives, how do you think she'll be used? Yeah, I think she's going to be in the same position that she's in, but she's going to be the decision of Piltover and Zahn fighting each other, and then Piltover and Zahn going to war with someone else. It's going to be expressed through her arc, I think. Let's see. Do I think that Kate's mom survives? So I would say no. I've heard some stuff about one of Kate's main stories in League lore, which makes her think that she might survive. So I don't know. Who's my favorite character in Star Wars? Darth Vader. Really wanted Jace villain arc. That would be very interesting too. I agree. That'd be good. If Jinx gains her sanity back, how do you think she'll do it? I don't think she'll gain her sanity back. I think she's Jinx. I think that's it. Rift asks, top 3 Arcane characters. Also, what's my address? Top 3 Arcane characters, Jinx, Vi, and probably Mel. My address is patreon.com/schnee1. That's my address. How many times have I watched Arcane? Many, many, many. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the bridge scene as Vi is leaving with Kate, not saying a word to Jinx. What's my take on that? And do I have a theory on why she didn't say anything? My theory, maybe I'll make a longer video about this, but my theory is that she is realizing that her goals are going to be a lot more complicated than just physically reuniting with her sister. So, I mean, I think part of it is that she cares about Kate, but I think this is when she's realizing that she's going to have to take Silco out, and that she's going to have to, possibly work with Piltover and all this kind of stuff. So just going to her, like, just going straight to her and trying to reunite with her again, that didn't work. with the Guns for Hire scene, that's not going to work. Wouldn't work on the bridge either. So, yeah. Do I ever see myself going tired of Arcane, moving your channel onto something else? I'm not. Yeah, I mean, at some point I'm gonna grow tired of talking about it, but not yet. And yeah, I do have plans to make videos about other stuff. What's the significance about the birds in Arcane? I do plan on making a video about that. I had to consult a bird expert to figure out if they're crows or ravens. How do I think CW shows could be improved with the writing? I don't believe I watch CW shows. I don't know. Do I feel like Vander being Warwick is cheap writing? Can you elaborate on that? What would be cheap about it? I don't really know. I mean, it would depend on what they do with Warwick, right? I'm going to make a video about my opinion on redemption in Arcane. Redemption. That'd be an interesting topic. I'd consider it. Ever watch Better Call Saul? I feel like analyzing that show. I've heard that that's a very good show. Some people in my family watch it. I watched the first 3 seasons of Breaking Bad, and it got a little too dark for me, and I stopped. At some point, I might watch. Do I watch Attack on Titan? I watched the first season. At some point, I might go on to making others. How much time do I put into my videos? I put a lot of time into my videos. I usually spend 3 to 4 days writing, and then I recently with the long videos, then it's taken another it's 20 to 30 hours of editing, something like that. Would you ever want to play League of Legends Runeterra, the card game? Yes, that sounds interesting, maybe. Can I make a video about Echo? I have made a video about Echo. It's called Perfect Side Character. Or that's the thumbnail. Who do you think had the biggest influence in turning Powder into Jinx, in my opinion? Jinx, probably. I think she had the biggest influence. Serious question, is Jinx in love with Vi? I don't think so. Can you make a video about Echo's past or his parents? Why did he end up with Benzo? His parents are alive. Why do they not care about what he does? That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about that, but I've wondered that too. What are your thoughts on the eye symbolism in relation to hextech magic? I noticed a ton of eye-like shapes throughout the show. I made a video about the Eye of Zon and some ideas about that symbolism. I don't have any thoughts beyond that, though. Did you know stones are a recurring theme in Arcane? Episode 1 in the song. Which next one do you think that's something? There's something about everything being all about one little stone, but and I'll talk about that in my video next week. I don't know about stones in particular, though. Are there any videos in other series in the near future? I have to decide when I want to really branch out into making some big video about. I think probably the first thing. Okay, so here's the tentative plan. So I do have a video I've been wanting to make forever about Lord of the Rings, possibly as one video, possibly as 2 separate videos. So that's going to come at some point, probably in the next few months, to make a really long video on that. The other thing that's on my radar, that's continuously been on my radar, is if some other show that is everyone is talking about comes out, that I have thoughts on, or movie or something like that, that's kind of that there's a big discussion about, then if I have thoughts on it, then I'll make content about that. If there's something to the Kenobi show that comes out, then I would make some long content on that. But if a show like The Queen's Gambit had come out in the last couple of months, then I probably would have made videos on that, just because I think people would want to see stuff about that. But yeah, so that's the 2 tracks that things go on. Either something is going to come out that I think people want to see people talking about, that I would want to talk about also. Some big it show, it movie, or in the next whole months I would make some video on Lord of the Rings or something. Could you do a video or minute analysis on whether or not Time Bomb is a valid ship? You think it will or won't happen some period of time? What ship is that? Tell me. Something like Squid Game. Yeah, I thought about making content on Squid Game at the beginning of my channel. I don't have anything to say about that show, though. Yeah, I thought it did what it was supposed to do okay, and I probably could have made a video on comparing it with Hunger Games or something like that, but I wasn't so interested. I don't know. Do I have a guilty pleasure anime? I don't know if I feel guilty about anything, but I love Ouran High School Host Club. I think that's a great anime. 4 a.m. hereby. See ya. Time Bomb is Echo and Jinx / Powder. I think that's stronger as a failed ship. I think that's stronger as I think if they go into more about, I know there's a scene that was cut about like Jinx and Echo's past. I'm curious what that was. I think it's stronger if it's something that Echo is. I mean, kind of like what would actually happen. That Echo's contending with that's over. That he's reminiscing about maybe when he would have still been in love with her or something like that. I don't see what to find it compelling with as a current ship now that she is Jinx. And I saw someone ask this on one of my other videos of what Jinx would be like in any ship, like if they decided to make her in a relationship with anyone. And I honestly can't figure it out. I don't know. I have no idea what type of like how that play out. Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. How does it feel to reach 50K? Feels very good. I think your videos are excellent, but I'm interested if you think you're overanalyzing or if you think the right follow these things you bring up. Yeah, so I talked about this a little bit recently. My focus is not about figuring out what the writers were thinking. It's about figuring out what made the thing work itself. So even if it's things that are not like on the writer's mind, it's things that worked, that either happened by accident or happened by their intuition that they couldn't define in the writing process. Then figuring out what makes a scene work after the fact, I think is where the real value is. You're awesome. Do you have a favorite episode of Arcane? I think I mentioned this, either episode 6 or episode 9. Jinx and Chuck is the best ship. I agree. Ning Ning, love all your in-depth videos. Thank you. I love your K-pop group. Do you think Arcane deserves a 9.1 IMDb? Is it too high? If not, too high or too low? Yeah, 9.1 seems good. Do you think there would be a fight between Vi and Jinx? I think there was a fight between Vi and Jinx. I mentioned this in one of my videos that I think that was originally how the season was supposed to end, and then they wrote the tea party scene instead, which was obviously better. But yeah, I think in the intro, then we see them setting up a Jinx Vi fight that never happened, and I think that's going to happen in season 2. Why do you think Powder was so quick to hate Vi after she left, even though she's the one who killed her entire family? That's a good question. I mean, I think this is part of the reason. Someone asked earlier who I think created Jinx, who had the biggest influence, and my answer was that Jinx created Jinx. And I think it's because even as Powder, I made a video about whether Powder was unempathetic and all these kind of jinxy things early on. I think there definitely was a self-absorbedness to Powder early on. And I think that's probably why she hated Vi. Her whole morality, her whole sense of morality is just in terms of people's relationship to her. So I think that's probably why. What do you think Victor is going to be like once he completely turns into the Machine Herald? I'm very curious to see how they do that. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot different. Thoughts on the Mel-Jace relationship? Does it come out of nowhere or is it well set up? I think it's well set up as Mel taking advantage of someone who's kind of lower on the totem pole for her. That's something that she would absolutely do. And I think for Jace, then it's realistic that he would admire her for the reasons he says, and that he would find I guess the way the relationship plays out, of he confides in her and he talks about his feelings, that kind of stuff. I thought that was realistic. Beyond that, I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't think it was like inevitable. Yeah, I don't know. If you made memes, they'd be called SCHNEE'S. Interesting. Interesting. Who do I think will survive the blast? Jace, Mel, and Victor, for sure. I don't know who else. I think the Hex will be a primary antagonist in season 2. That's an interesting question. I could see that being the case. What do you think about how Vi is going to react if Vander comes back as Warwick? Yeah, they can't. I don't know. I haven't thought this out so much, but as far as the Warwick thing, I don't think they can make him. I think, if anything, I would say this: that the preview we saw of Vander, the preview we saw of Vander being on Shimmer, in that small little scene in episode 3, I think it's going to be very similar to what his arc would be as Warwick. That he's going to be someone. He's not going to be like a complete like monster, but it's going to be something about him struggling with him being a monster versus him being Vander. Which Star Wars movie is my favorite? Controversial answer, but Return of the Jedi is my favorite. That's something I would make a long form video about why everyone is wrong about that movie. It is the best Star Wars movie. What are your thoughts on Spider-Verse? Are you excited for the second one? I really liked it. I thought it was setting up a good characters, good world. Is Arcane my favorite show? Right now, it's my favorite show. One Piece is always in the background as my favorite. Can I do a video analyzing Jinx powders and notebook entries? That'd be interesting to do on that extra content that Riot put out. Does my name come from the German word Schnee, or does it have a different origin? It does come from the German word Schnee. Can you make a video explaining why we see Jinx about to kill Vi, but also saves her in the last episode? For example, she's about to shoot her during the reunion, and she shot towards her on the bridge. Yeah. Jinx's whole way of acting is very much based on how she feels right now. So I think that's the basis of explaining the things they're talking about. I want to make a video explaining Jinx's relationship to her past. I think that's the other kind of long video that I want to make about Jinx. But yeah, so maybe I'll include some of that in there. What your name actually comes from Schnee? Yeah, it's part of my last name. I'm going to look through the other questions. I have this giant list of questions that people asked in the video, and I feel like a lot of them were the same, but I feel like I'm ignoring a lot of them. Let me just go through some. I'm probably going to end in about 10 minutes, if people are wondering. Are you aware that your voice is amazing? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm curious what you think of the idea of plot armor in Arcane. A lot of people have pointed out that they never expected certain characters to die because they exist in the League of Legends game. And there's the idea that champions have plot armor. And this idea that champions have plot armor, I think, fuels a lot of speculation about some characters counts from potentially surviving. Jinx's Super Mega Death Rocket. Right. Jinx's Super Mega Death Rocket. My question is, do you think that the champions from the role have plot armor in Arcane? If so, how do you think it affects the story, if it does at all? It's a good question. Yeah, I would hope that they'd be willing to kill off characters even if they're champions. I see a lot of people saying, I've seen a lot of people say that they think that, of course this character is X because they're a champion in LoL. I don't think it's as connected as people think it is. I would really bet that we're going to see some character die in season 2 who is a champion. As far as the expectation, I think I think that can be a harmful thing if that's what actually happened. Yeah, I think it'd be better if they didn't have plot armor. Yeah, that's a good question. I figured Schnee was hinting that you're a Ruby fan. No, but I know what character you're talking about. I see Kumtier keep asking, how do you mix episodic with serialized? I do not know what that question means. Do you think Soko took Powder in because he saw potential in her or because he saw himself in her? I think it is. I think it's supposed to be left ambiguous. And I think he might have even been thinking one thing and he did the other. Yeah, I think it's both. Am I a fan of any podcasts? I listen to Drive to Work, Mark Rosebar. I listen to some of Tim Ferriss. Best books to read on storytelling. I don't know of any books to read on storytelling. Am I a fan of Georgia Dow's Arcane analysis video on Arcane characters? Yeah. I know Necrit. I love C Collab Q&A between you about Arcane. Yeah, I do know who Necrit is. That'd be fun. I've seen the comparison between Jinx at the end of episode 3 and this painting called Fallen Angel. I'm curious what that is. I can look it up. Fallen Angel painting. I would have to have this explained to me. I don't know what the comparison is. Lucifer painting. Okay. What do you think about Mel's golden shoulder piece and its role in potentially saving some of the council in the explosion? I do think that she saves some of the council. I think that is what happened. Let's see. Well, I'd be doing more Star Wars videos, yes. If you were to interview the author, one author and ask them their secrets about writing, what would it be? Who would it be? Dead or alive? I don't know. Definitely Oda. Yeah, definitely Oda. From One Piece. There are also in my mind, there's a category of like things that like I can try to understand somewhat, and then things where just like I don't understand any of this at all. I know this is amazing, and I don't understand any of what's going on here. So Hayao Miyazaki, a lot of what he does is just beyond me. It's just like, this is so good, and I have no idea why. And like I don't know how I can even figure out why. And then Steinbeck is the other one like that. So those are the three probably. What was the first story? Oh yeah, I read that. Let's see. Have I read The Maze or watched The Maze Runner? I read the first book. That was fine for what it did. I didn't think it was like one of, it was in that genre. It was just doing what that genre was supposed to do. I thought it was fine. Okay, let's see. There's another source of questions that I may be able to find. When I consider analyzing any of the following: Cobra Kai, Dragon Prince. I don't know what that last abbreviation is. I did one video on Cobra Kai. I just had one thought on it, and I wanted to see if it pick up any steam. I think it's a good series. I don't know if I plan to do any more. And yeah, I made one short on it a while ago. Let me see. Where is this? Okay. Do you think next season will explore Shimmer's effect on Jinx's mind and also physically enhanced eyesight, terrible mental breakdowns? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest. I think Jinx's course is kind of set with her embracing her type of technology. I don't know if Shimmer is going to impact her so much within the next season. Good question. Interesting. Let's feature the show. Second favorite animated TV show. What flaws do you think Arcane has? Okay, a lot of these I answered already. I think season 2 may differ from season 1. I think we're going to see a bigger world. Still centered on Puzzle Rims On, but I think it's going to be expanded. Main character experiencing shame reduction, I think that'd be cool. Yeah, I agree. That'd be very interesting. I feel like Warwick could be super interesting considering Vander might be influenced by Singe and his ideals. Singe sacrifices love for progress, which is the opposite of Vander's ideology. Yeah. That'd be pretty interesting. It'd be interesting if they do like a Frankenstein's monster thing with that. You think Soko would have killed Vi if Marcus had not grabbed her? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Soko was trying to shoot Vi only because she was trying to get powder back? I think he saw Jinx's distress pain. I think it's the latter. I think he saw that she was causing pain. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to end soon. Anyone else have anything else to ask me before I stop? What do you think about the fact that Echo and Jinx are never talking to each other as kids? Do you think it takes away from the bridge fight? I think, if anything, it adds to the bridge fight because it's making us realize that these characters are deeper than what we just saw on screen. Yeah, I think I would say that. By larger world, do you mean more characters or just nations, places, and Runeterra? I think both. Favorite video game story? Chrono Trigger, by far. When is your next video? I'm hyped. I'm gonna have 2 shorts on on Wednesday and Friday, and then another long video on Sunday. My Sunday video, as a preview, I'm gonna be talking about my favorite scene in all of Arcane. It's gonna just be me talking about my favorite scene for 20 minutes. Which character would you take out of the Arcane show if I absolutely had to? Marcus. I mean, I think functionally, then they need someone like him. Do I have a favorite video game? I think one of the most interesting. My answer to this is probably Chrono Trigger, but as far as storytelling, one of the video games I learned the most from in terms of storytelling was Journey, which tells a whole story without any, words. So I think you can learn a lot from that. That's up there for me. What I think about the enemy music video and the scenes it adds. I've thought of doing an analysis, not just on that, but on other Arcane or other League. What's it called? The League, like animated shorts. So I might talk about them. Explanation for the painting: it shows the devil in the second he's being cast out of heaven, like powder in that scene by Vi. Oh, okay. I see it. That's interesting. I would definitely not put it past the Fortiche people to have done that. Opinion on the Chinese opening? I'm not aware of that. What are things you keep enjoying about Act 1? I mean, everything. I mean, I think the whole relationship between Vi and Powder is excellent, and the whole final sequence of the whole last half of episode 3 is incredible. You're doing it now. I love your videos. Thank you, Kushal P. Keeping awesome, dude. You too. Do you think Marcus is trying to kill Vi? Trying to save Vi by putting her in jail so Zuko doesn't kill her? You just put her in jail to keep her out of the way? I think the former. I think he was trying to save her. My theory on that, I forgot I mentioned this in some video, but my theory on that was that he was going to set her up to be a rival to Silco, who he saw was gaining power, but he didn't realize how fast Silco was gaining power. So he was all of a sudden on top, and then now she was a liability, and he had to work with Silco. So Vi kind of just got left by the wayside, forgotten. Do you think it was fair that Vi had to be put into a parenting role for Powder in Act 1? No, I do not think it was fair, but I think that was the point. It's likely that Siviko was the one who helped Jinx by teaching her hygiene, engineering, and how to fight. Why do you think they hate each other? I don't know. I think Silco is a pretty clean person. I think he would teach her some hygiene. I didn't really take because she's kind of dirty in a lot of scenes. Yeah. Never fair to put a child in that role, but it happens nevertheless. I agree. What do you think of the Batman? Have not seen it yet. Okay. Okay. Okay, I am. Yeah, I'm only where I am for one more day. I'm spending some time with my family, and I'm gonna go have lunch with them before I leave. So I'm gonna end now, and this is a lot of fun. Maybe I'll do this again in the future. Yeah, I didn't get to everyone's questions. Some of them I may like answer. Like I may comment on the comments if I find ones I really wanted to answer. Going back onto my videos. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. See everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And I will hopefully I'll do this again at some point. And subscribe if you haven't. It's been a lot of growth on the channel, and that's been very exciting for me. So yeah. So really thank you a lot for all the support. It's been amazing being on this journey, and you know, it's you guys who keep this rewarding for me. You know, I can think about these things on my own, but like, you know, getting the interaction, like that's what really makes it special. So thanks a lot. Thank you everyone who made the 50K possible and who's subscribed since then. Got a lot of subscribers since then. So yeah, hope to see you guys in the comment sections in future videos. Hope to do live stream again at some point, and I will see you guys later.